Hello everybody and welcome to the Clean Bowl podcast with me, Sab, in a very different setting, and that is because I am using my brand new camera, which I finally got set up, so I do apologise for the delay in the last video. Also, as you may have seen from our Instagram, we have been on tour with the Mighty Nomadic King, so we've got plenty of content about that tour, which I'll be uploading in the next few days, so stick out and check out that. So thank you very much for the support. I had a lot of people interacting whilst we were on tour, which was really nice to see, so thank you very much for the support, the interaction, the questions, you name it, we really appreciate it. But we are here for a very specific reason, because Test cricket is back. That's right. Tomorrow, the England versus New Zealand series starts, so after months of T20 cricket with the World Cup and now the IPL, that is now out the way, and we're back to proper cricket, red ball cricket, the longest format of the game, the best format of the game, I think we can all agree. And yeah, the 2026 season is upon us. So lots to get into. This is going to be a preview of the England versus New Zealand series, so stick around and find out what I have to say, what I think are going to be the kind of key battles in this series, but also who I think is going to come out on top. Before we get into that though, please make sure you hit that like button, give this video a share, and make sure you subscribe to the channel, because now that we've got this new camera, you know, we're going to take this content to a whole new level, and there's so much exciting things that we've got planned in the next few months, so you do not want to miss out. So yeah, it's been 5 months since we last saw any Test cricket. It's been a little while since we've seen England. The last time we saw them in red ball action in Test cricket was when they were getting royally humiliated and embarrassed again down under in Australia during the Ashes. After much hype, after much fanfare, thousands of England supporters travelled over to Australia to ultimately be thoroughly disappointed with a 4-1 defeat in the end, and they lost in the earliest possible time. You know, they lost the first 3 tests, and I think they lost the first test in 2 days. So yeah, it really was pretty grim, losing that within 10-11 days. So what's happened since then? Well, there's been a whole review, a reset, if you like. This happens every time England lose an Ashes series. There's a big reset. Not a huge reset in terms of personnel this time, but obviously they've had a review. They're trying to do things differently, so this is meant to be a new England, and yeah, we'll see about that. But this sort of thing happens every time England have an Ashes in Australia, because invariably they always go there and lose pretty badly. Usually they sack the captain, they sack the coach, and then there's a whole bunch of players come in. They haven't done that this time. They've stuck with Brendon McCullum, they've stuck with Rob Key, and they've stuck with Ben Stokes. I think Stokes staying was pretty much a formality. I would have been really shocked if they got rid of him. But I think there were a lot of people calling for heads. The England fans wanted blood. And I think there's a lot of surprise that Brendon McCullum kept his job and Rob Key kept his job after what was a pretty awful tour on and off the field for England, with obviously lots of bad things coming out of the tour off the field, with drinking and fights in New Zealand, and you know, not preparing properly, and it was just a mess. It couldn't have gone any worse. It's probably one of the most horrendous Ashes tours in recent memory when you think about everything else, and England's lack of preparation and sort of turning up and hoping really backfired on them badly. And you know, they were at pains to tell us that it wasn't a great Australia side. Yes, maybe it's an Australian team that was a bit older, and maybe not some of the players maybe not in their prime, but still a great Australian team, and obviously good enough to beat in this England team 4-1. So McCullum has kept his job. He is still the coach, well, contracted till the 50 over World Cup next year. It remains to be seen, obviously, if he is going to see that out. But England are looking for a new approach with him. He's been asked to be a bit more adaptable in his style. He's asked to take more of an initiative in county cricket, which he's obviously not done much of. Obviously Brendon McCullum still lives out in New Zealand, so he kind of jets in, does his thing, goes back again, comes back, you know. So let's see how seriously he takes this time, and the early signs in this new era. But I mean, sorry, before we get into it, obviously the symmetry is quite interesting, because forget this Ashes series, the previous Ashes series, when there was a debacle, I think that might have been the COVID Ashes series, pretty much spelled the end of Joe Root's captaincy. He did stay on for one more test in the West Indies, which I think they lost again. But they've gone on a horrendous run, I think, of about 17 matches without a win or something like that. Really, really bad. So they came in and they put Stokes in, they had Bam, and that was the birth of this bazball era of cricket. So, and I think their first series was against New Zealand, and a very good New Zealand side maybe 40 years ago now. I think England ended up winning that series, and it seemed like the birth of a new era, the way that England played, and it was quite revolutionary, haphazard and risk, but chaotic, a roller coaster, but it definitely put a new kind of impetus into Test cricket, or that's what they were telling us. And it was very exciting for the game, and I do agree it's entertaining, but what we've seen over the last 4 years is it doesn't necessarily always produce results when England need them, or particularly against the better teams, i.e. Australia and India, who England have not beaten under this leadership team. So here we are again, another Ashes debacle, a new era, albeit with the same people, and it's against New Zealand again, and I think also a very strong New Zealand team. So let's firstly get into the England squad, because obviously there are new names, and it'll be interesting just to go through both teams and where we sort of see that. England have named their 12-man squad, so as of recording, the match starts tomorrow. That's the day one. Emilio Gay is set to make his Test debut, and you've got other newcomers. There's Sonny Baker as well, Ollie Robinson. This will be his first Test for more than 2 years. So let's have a look at the squad. That's the best thing. So we've got Ben Duckett, Emilio Gay. They're probably going to open tomorrow. Jacob Bethel, Joe Root, Harry Brook, Jamie Smith, Ben Stokes, Ollie Robinson, Gus Atkinson, Josh Tongue, Shoaib Bashir, and Sonny Baker. So no Rahan Ahmed in that. So that obviously proves that this is England sort of telling us who their number one spinner is. That's Shoaib Bashir. He's obviously quite a polarising cricketer. He does have his fans, but he does have his detractors as well. So let's look at it. I mean, look, it's not wholesale changes, and maybe England will argue that they didn't need to make wholesale changes, but they've changed where they needed to change. I think, new openers, or a new opener in Emilio Gay, who's obviously flourished in the county season this year and has been doing really well for a while. So he's been knocking on the door, and he's really cemented that place, I think, and it's his to kind of carry on with. Zach Crawley just was not, just wasn't doing it, to be honest, and I think this was an inevitable thing. This can't be a big shot to anyone. He's played, over 60 games now for England. His average is around 30, 33, something like that, which is not good enough for a Test opener. And he just hasn't shown any signs of sort of changing that. And he obviously has had the chance to come into the new season with his county and perform and sort of plead his case to keep as England opener. But he's had a shocker when it comes to the start of the county season. So, yeah. Unfortunately, it's bye-bye Zach Crawley, and with the emergence of Jacob Bethel as sort of the new star of England cricket, that obviously meant the death knell for Ollie Pope. Obviously, we saw he didn't contribute much in the Ashes, and again, sort of similar to Crawley, he's played quite a number of Test matches now. I think once you get to that kind of 40, 50 number of matches, your average is your average. That sort of found out, and that maybe is perhaps as harsh as it is, might be where your level is as well. So with Jacob Bethel, and look, Jacob Bethel's only played a handful of Test matches, but we can see what he's capable of. He's already scored that brilliant century in Australia, albeit in a losing cause. And he scored a brilliant century, one of the great World Cup centuries against India in the semi-final of the World Cup, which almost got England over the line and would have been an iconic and famous win had he done that. He's not had the best IPL, even though RCB won. So he's back in. Joe Root, don't really need to say much about him. Obviously, he's England's probably one and only world-class player, I would say, at this stage. He's just evergreen, isn't he? He just does the same thing, and he's great. He's obviously one of the greatest. Well, he's England's greatest batsman of all time. Might go down as the greatest batsman of all time, depending on how many runs he gets the next few years. But yeah. So then the other interesting bit about the batting lineup, or potential batting lineup, is Stokes probably batting at number 7, with Jamie Smith coming in at 6, which is interesting. Some people weren't happy about this. I think it's quite interesting because Ben Stokes actually, his average has declined. His batting has declined. I think we've seen a great Ben Stokes innings for some time. His last great innings is probably that 2019 at Headingley, but he's had good scores since then, obviously, but his average and his batting, I think, has declined a little bit. His bowling has actually got better, but his batting seems to have declined. So I wonder if that's sort of a sign of things to come, and if this is sort of Ben Stokes' new role within the batting lineup is to more stick around and help the tail. It's really interesting that they've put him at 7 and Jamie Smith at 6, because you sort of feel like that how much of a change is that, or what's that going to do? Because Jamie Smith exploded onto the test scene, and I think he's still got a very good average, but he struggled badly in Australia. So is this a chance for him to get in? And obviously bats very well with Harry Brook. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see that combination, how Ben Stokes does sort of lower down the order, albeit it's just one place that he switched. But I think that's quite telling. Perhaps it's where they sort of see Ben Stokes now as a batsman who's now emerging as a bowling all-rounder who can bat, and that's the sort of reason why he's kind of come down the order as number 7 now. Obviously it does strengthen their batting lineup, but yeah, Ben Stokes has not had a great time with the bat as of late, for quite a few years actually. So that's interesting. And yeah, looking at the rest of the team, Ollie Robinson, you'd have to say it's probably his final chance, his third and final test chance. A really curious career that he's had, because obviously he burst onto the scene, has a great test record, 20 test matches, I think 70 wickets, fantastic, and he really seemed like the new leader of the attack. But then came that fateful tour to India where, he struggled with back spasms and myriad of injuries, but I think his application and attitude was sort of the unofficial reasons that, this England team didn't rate him much. I think it was his aptitude and his sort of application to work on the fitness side of things, and that's obviously very important for McCullum and Stokes, to be fit and, to take care of your body and to be able to bowl long spells and things like that, and he just didn't seem up for it. And he was sort of ousted, and it seemed like that was the end, and there wasn't going to be any way back for him. But he sort of forced his way in, and he's had a good start to the county season. He's obviously now captaining Sussex, and he's shown good glimpses of what he can do with the ball. And he's had a couple of fifers already. Obviously, he's got a century with the bat, so they've opened the door for him, and he's taken the opportunity. So fair play to him for getting his way back into the England team. That's obviously a proud moment. It remains to be seen about the workload and how he can manage. Obviously, he's 32 now. I'm not saying he's old, but it's always the thing when you get into your 30s. And if you had injury problems when you were in your 20s, what has he done? Has he done the work to maybe withstand that and to bowl long spells, which is obviously what England will be hoping from him, because when he gets it right, he is a fantastically accurate bowler and an ideal test bowler, and he gets a lot of movement. Even on pitches where there isn't much movement, Ollie Robinson has that skill set which England are crying out for. Because, look, let's be honest, Josh Tongue is someone that they think of a lot, and he's shown glimpses of what he can do as well. Same with Gus Atkinson. But look, it's not a bowling attack that, if I was facing this bowling attack, maybe not me personally, but your international side going into this tour and you see this bowling lineup, you're probably thinking, it's not the most scary or dangerous or intimidating bowling lineup. It's not a world-class bowling lineup, in my opinion. And I think this is one of England's weakness, so they need to find something from these bowlers. I'm looking at the probable 11 for tomorrow. Josh Tongue, Gus Atkinson, Ollie Robinson, Ben Stokes. And then you've got Bashir, Root to the spin. Bethel as well, potentially. It's not a daunting prospect, shall we say. And that isn't to disrespect anybody. It just doesn't seem like this is the best England attack that's possible. See, there's no Archer at the minute. They're giving him a rest because of Rajasthan going deep into the IPL. That's obviously caused a lot of controversy about whether that should be okay or not. But it is what it is. He will not be playing in the first test tomorrow. So the best that they can hope for is that he plays for the second test. So he is something we can't really talk about. There's no point talking about him. So when you look at who is going to be playing tomorrow, I would say it's not the greatest bowling attack. And look, I could be sitting here in 3, 4, 5 days' time, and England may have won in 4 days because their bowling was superior. And I look like an idiot. And I'm happy for that to be the case. I'm just saying, on paper, I'm looking at these bowlers. This is not the best bowling lineup in the world. So, yeah. And the batsmen, yeah, look, there's a lot of familiarity in the sort of middle order, that core. When you go Root, Brook, Smith, Stokes, we sort of know that little spine now. Bethel as well, we know what we can do. So that you like that kind of that 3, 4, 5 and 6, and maybe at 7. You quite like that. Bethel is still quite young to his Test career, so you know how this series could really bring him to the world. You know, we've already seen what he can do, and we've seen already glimpses. But is this going to be his sort of, you know, coming of age? And he announces himself now as England's main batsman. You know, who's going to take the mantelpiece when Joe Root finally retires? A lot of people might think that it could be Jacob Bethel. We could be seeing the start of that sort of rise to superstardom in this series, as he's got a proper run of games now in the Test side. So I'm keen to see what he does, actually. Harry Brook is someone that I'm keen to see as well. Obviously, he's had a very difficult and turbulent time, obviously, with what happened with the white ball stuff in New Zealand. And him personally, he's obviously kept his job as one-day captain. I think he did a pretty decent job in the World Cup in India, the T20 World Cup, which is probably why everyone's kind of moved on from what has happened. But again, there's going to be eyes on him, because if we see more of the same, where he shows all this amazing abilities but gets out cheaply playing this kind of bazball way, then again, questions are going to be asked. The same for Jamie Smith, who seemed to get into a rut of just getting out in the most crazy ways, or the most haphazard way. And yeah, even Ben Stokes, he's now batting at 7. He hasn't had a great time. He did score a big century against India in the Test series last year, but you can't really remember a great Ben Stokes innings, and he hasn't had a series where he scored a lot of runs in quite some time. So looking at this team, it is a team that I would say is a transitional team. You know, obviously at the top you've got a new opener, you've got new names in there, combined with more of the same, and more of the same of a team that's already under scrutiny. So, yeah, it does make sense not to be freshen up too much, because then it's too much pressure. But I just wonder, you know, the batting looks okay. I would say it looks okay. We need to see how Emilio Gay gets on in this standard. But after him, yeah, from Bethel, Root, Brook, Smith and Stokes, it's not too bad a sort of middle order. You just hope that they're not too reliant on Joe Root, because if he gets out early, does this team have the ability to dig in deep and fight? We know that Ben Stokes can do that. Can Smith, can Brook do that? Can Bethel do that? Ollie Robinson at 8, they're probably expecting things with him from the bat now that he scored some runs in the county setup. But I want to look at New Zealand now, because obviously, you know, we can't keep talking about England all the time. This is a preview of both teams. So we don't know what their 11 is going to be yet. We don't know what their sort of 12-man squad is going to be for tomorrow. But looking at this team, it is a strong New Zealand side. So let's have a look at the squad. So obviously they've got Tom Latham, the keeper, Tom Blundell, Devon Conway, Henry Nicholls, Kane Williamson. So those are the frontline batsmen. You have to say that's a strong batting lineup. A little bit on the older side, not too dissimilar to the Australian side. In fact, all the ages of these guys, they're all 34 or 35. Tom Latham 34, Blundell's 35, Conway's 34, Nicholls is 34, Williamson is 35. So they're very experienced, but they are, well, in cricketing terms, getting on a bit, and that doesn't mean any kind of disrespect. But look, that kind of experience is invaluable. These guys have been around the block. Yeah, but there's a lot of runs there, a lot of experience there. So yeah, apart from the age factor, which may not even be a factor, it's a strong opening and kind of top order there. And you look at the all-rounders they've got, like Foulkes, Daryl Mitchell, Glenn Phillips, Rachin Ravindra, Mitchell Santner, Nathan Smith, Dean Foxtrot. So I mean, there's some really exciting names, and also Dean Foxtrot is actually withdrawn from the squad. But yeah, some really exciting names, no more so than Rachin Ravindra, who's really shown himself to be, you know, a preeminent name in terms of New Zealand cricket, all format player. Daryl Mitchell is still doing things, he's still doing bits, so yeah, probably a lot of these guys, it's their last tour to England. A lot of these guys obviously around 4 years ago when New Zealand had a really strong Test side. So they're still there. You think they're probably on the decline now, but yeah, look, obviously Glenn Phillips, Mitchell Santner, you've got some experienced guys there who've played all sorts of cricket all around the world. So they're not going to phase be further, but it's the bowling lineup that I quite like, actually. You've got Matt Henry, you've got Kylie Jameson, you've got Will O'Rourke and Blair Tickner. That's a nice quartet of fast bowlers who I think will do well in English conditions. I think they'll do really well in English conditions. It's a new attack from the one that England, New Zealand would have had last time they came here. Obviously with Saudi, etc., not here anymore. In fact, sadly, might be coaching for England. But yeah, Henry, Jameson, these are all guys who are really good exponents of the swing ball and exponents of good swing in English conditions. So yeah, this is a strong New Zealand lineup. I think not enough is being made of that. So it's a tough test for England up front because you don't know necessarily. I think obviously looking at the two teams, you'd say it's quite evenly matched. Playing in England is difficult. It's a bit of a leveller, I think. But on paper, I do think the experience, you might actually just give it to New Zealand just in terms of, the pressure is on England to deliver. They're the home team. The pressure is on them. And also there's new faces in there, whereas I think New Zealand have that experience. But there's also some X factor in there with, you've got Rachin Ravindra, Glenn Phillips, for example. You've got a bit of an X factor there. And Kane Williamson as well, obviously one of the Fab Four, the vaunted four of this generation. He's still there. Almost certainly his last tour to England. So yeah, he'll want to go out on a bang and show us that he's still got it and still performing. So it's great to sort of see him, and also be sad to see him. As I said, for a lot of these New Zealanders, I would imagine it's their final tour to England, so they'll want to show, give a good account of themselves. In fact, this is what New Zealand do. Look, they obviously they're not held to the same sort of standards in terms of cricket as Australia or India or England are. But regardless, they come and they fight and they give absolutely everything. And they're always there. They do this every time. So, I do think this is a good chance for New Zealand to really lay down a marker. Remember, this team has beaten India in recent times, and they've picked up some good wins, this New Zealand team. So this is not a New Zealand team that we need to be sniffing at. This is a strong New Zealand team that are here on a kind of last hurrah of this sort of generation crop of players. This is their last time out. So they want to go on a bang, and I think they have a very strong team, a team that could really hurt England. So England need to be careful because there's a lot riding on this series. This isn't just cool, it's New Zealand, start of the summer, and then, lots of stuff happening. This is a big, critical time in the history of English cricket. If I can't put too big a point on it. They've got Pakistan coming next, and, Pakistan are in a bit of a mess themselves, but it's a critical time for English cricket with everything happened since the Ashes, their coaching setup and everything like that, and then an Ashes at home next year. Whether or not Brendon McCullum will be in charge, but that Ashes series remains being a lot will hinge on this. If England were to lose, and I say maybe even draw the series, if they lose, could really be in trouble. Brendon McCullum, he could really be in trouble. They lose the series, and that might be curtains for the bazball era. If they lose this series, what does it mean for Ben Stokes as well? How much does he have left? Obviously, he'll be breaking down a lot these days. He's had recurring injuries and surgeries, so he keeps himself in phenomenal shape, but he's picking up a lot of injuries. Every series he seems to break down at the end. This is not a 5-test match series, so he may be able to go to the distance of 3. And obviously, he's a guy who wears his heart on his sleeve. He gives absolutely everything for the team. But how much longer can he keep going? Because he obviously doesn't play much franchise cricket, doesn't play much white ball cricket anymore, and he's still picking up those injuries. And Test cricket is hard. Look, I'm not trying to diminish the efforts and the amount he puts in. But yeah, so how much does this leadership have left in them? If they start off badly here, it's going to be a disaster. And in many ways, I mean, look, obviously they could have been facing India or Australia, but it's a big year, and it's probably one of the worst teams they could have asked for. A New Zealand team that fights, that gives you everything, and that they will not give up. They will not give you an inch. Even when you think you've got ahead of them, they will always hang in there just enough to keep in the game. And they've got the personnel to really do some damage here. I actually think New Zealand actually might win this series. I'm actually going to predict New Zealand to win 2-0. I just think they have that tenacity, and if they can go to India and win 3-0, they can go anywhere and win. And with a bit between their teeth, and look, they'll have ambitions of getting into the World Test Championship final again, and winning it again. And why not? Why not? I think this is a really strong lineup. Look, it's not without its flaws, don't get me wrong, but the personnel that they've got there, I think they've got some really great names in there, some experienced names in there who'll know what it's like to be in England, who'll know how to kind of thrive in this format. Kane Williamson, so obviously the captain Tom Latham, Devon Conway, these guys have scored runs in England before. So yeah, I think New Zealand actually are going to win this series. The more I think about it, the more and look, I could be wrong, and I will happily say I'm wrong if I do end up being wrong. But yeah, and again, I think they've got the bowlers. Again, it's not. They may look a little bit light, like the workload, but there's kind of that quartet of bowlers: Henry, Jameson, O'Rourke, and Tickner. It's a strong bowling lineup. Sorry, that will do well in England. That's the thing. You don't need 90 miles an hour pacers who are going to come in and bowl bounces all the time to work in England. You need, back of a length, that line and length, swinging it away, swinging it in, and it doesn't need to be rapid pace. You could be high 8 to low 80s and still do a fantastic job. And yeah, they've got decent backups in terms of spinners. Ravindra, Santner, all good all-rounders themselves. Glenn Phillips as well. So yeah, just looking at the New Zealand squad, and look, I know they were in a bit of trouble against Ireland, but again, I think this team is primed and ready. Yeah, and I look at that England team, and there's just a lot of pressure, new faces. How are they going to cope? But again, it's not a team that screams to me like, oh, that's a strong England type. If Archer was playing, I might think differently, but because he's not playing, and again, if England were to go 1-0 up, if New Zealand were to go 1-0 up, I could see them going on and winning the series. So yeah, it goes without saying that the first test is going to be crucial. But yeah, for me, I think New Zealand are going to win this. I just have this feeling. And then England could potentially be in a whole world of mess. Perhaps not. They might give some leeway and some patience and time with new faces in there. But yeah, looking at the teams, I think New Zealand have just got enough to come here and really show England what they're missing, basically, and what they could be. And that it doesn't need to be kind of this bazball crazy style of cricket where everything is 100 miles an hour. New Zealand will play proper test cricket, but they'll fight and they won't give up. And yeah, England could learn a thing or two from New Zealand. But yeah, let's see what happens. It all starts tomorrow at Lord's for the Test series, and an exciting summer ahead. In fact, it's an exciting time for England, and obviously they've got a white ball series against India coming, which is going to be great. I'm going to be going to a couple of those matches, so I can't wait. So hopefully we can get to some vlogs in person there. But then England go to South Africa as well later this year. New Zealand host India later on, so it's a huge season of Test cricket coming, and it's going to be thick and fast. And Australia going back to South Africa for the first time since the sandpaper scandal. So yeah, a huge mouth-watering season of Test cricket is upon us. So make sure you follow us, give us a like, and subscribe so you don't want to miss out on all our content. We've got some exciting stuff coming away. But what do you guys think? Who wins between England and New Zealand? What do you think about the new kind of era of England? Or is it going to be same old gritty New Zealand who kind of get the job done again? What do we think? Let us know in the comment section below. I've been Sab. This has been the Clean Bowl Podcast. We'll see you next time.